Have you ever wondered about the history of IndyCar racing? IndyCar racing, the premier open-wheel motorsports series in the United States, has captivated fans with its high-speed action, thrilling moments, and legendary drivers for more than a century. From its humble beginnings in the early 1900s to becoming a global spectacle, the history of IndyCar is marked by remarkable feats of engineering, fierce competition, and unforgettable moments that have shaped the sport. Let's explore the evolution of IndyCar racing, its iconic races, groundbreaking innovations, and the legendary figures who have made their mark on the sport. Welcome to History Wonder. The story of IndyCar racing begins in the early 20th century when automobile manufacturers were seeking ways to demonstrate the power and reliability of their machines. The Indianapolis Motor Speedway, now one of the most iconic racing venues in the world, was the stage for the birth of the modern American open-wheel racing. The Indy Motor Speedway was founded by Carl G. Fisher, an entrepreneur who envisioned a track where automobile manufacturers could test their vehicles and promote the automobile industry. The Indy 500, which has become the centerpiece of the IndyCar calendar, was first held in 1911. The race was initially conceived as a way to bring together automobile manufacturers and the drivers in a test of endurance and speed. In its inaugural year, the race was a success, drawing a crowd of over 80,000 spectators. The first winner of the Indianapolis 500 was Ray Harron, who drove a Marmon Wasp to victory. Harron's victory was notable not just because of the win itself, but because he employed an innovative strategy by using a rear-view mirror, an invention that would become standard on all cars thereafter. While the Indy 500 quickly became the most famous race in the world, it was not the only major event in IndyCar racing. During the 1920s and 30s, open-wheel racing continued to grow in popularity, with a number of notable drivers and races emerging. The competition was fierce, with talented drivers from all over the world coming to America to take part in the prestigious race. In 1935, the Indy 500 witnessed one of the sport's most memorable moments, when the legendary driver, Louis Meyer, won the race for the third time, becoming the first driver in history to do so. Meyer's victory cemented his place in history, and his iconic drinking of buttermilk after the win became a tradition that would continue for years to come. The 1940s and 50s brought further advancements in technology and safety to the sport, as well as new stars. One of the most famous drivers of this era was Tony Bettenhausen, who became a fan favorite for his aggressive driving style and daring moves on the track. Bettenhausen's tragic death in a 1961 crash cast a dark shadow over the sport, but also highlighted the dangers that drivers faced in their pursuit of glory. In the 1950s, IndyCar racing entered a new era known as the Roadster era. This period was marked by the introduction of front-engine cars or roadsters, which were dominant on the track for over a decade. These cars, built for speed and power, dominated the Indianapolis 500 and were driven by some of the sport's most talented and fearless drivers. One of the standout figures of this era was the legendary A.J. Foyt, who would go on to become one of the greatest drivers in IndyCar history. Foyt's first Indianapolis 500 victory came in 1961, and he would go on to win the race a total of 4 times during his illustrious career. Foyt's skill, determination, and toughness on the track earned him a reputation as one of the sport's most respected figures. The 1960s also saw the emergence of another iconic driver, Jim Clark, who brought a new level of sophistication and precision to IndyCar racing. Clark, a Scottish driver, became the first foreign driver to win the Indy 500 in 1965, solidifying his place in history and adding an international flair to the series. In the late 60s and early 1970s, IndyCar racing experienced another major shift with the introduction of rear-engine cars. The move to rear-engine designs was a direct result of innovations in Formula One racing, where rear-engine cars had proven to be faster and more efficient on the track. As teams began to adopt these designs, the racing landscape changed, and their traditional roadsters were phased out in favor of the sleeker, more aerodynamic rear-engine machines. The change in car design revolutionized IndyCar racing, and it was during this period that one of the most legendary drivers in the history of the sport, Mario Andretti, rose to prominence. Andretti, born in Italy but raised in the United States, became a household name in the 1960s and 70s, with his unparalleled driving skills and versatility across different forms of motorsport. Andretti won the Indy 500 in 1969, becoming one of the sport's most beloved figures. In the 1970s, the rival between Foyt and Mario Andretti became one of the sport's defining storylines. Foyt and Andretti both enjoyed success at the Indianapolis 500, with Andretti's victory in 1969 marking the end of the Roadster era and the beginning of a new chapter in IndyCar history. The 1980s and 90s were marked by a period of significant change and division in IndyCar racing. In the late 1980s, the sport was split into two major factions: CART, or CART, the championship auto racing teams, and the Indy Racing League, the IRL, a rival series created by the Indianapolis Motor Speedway to promote American drivers and teams. The split in the sport created intense competition between the two series, with CART featuring an international roadster of drivers and teams while the IRL focused primarily on American talent. This division led to a decline in the overall popularity of IndyCar racing for several years, as fans and sponsors were forced to choose sides. During this period, several drivers emerged as icons of the sport, including Nigel Mansell, a former Formula One world champion who joined CART in early 1990s and won the 1993 championship. Mansell's entry into IndyCar added a new level of excitement and credibility to the series, drawing attention from fans and media around the world. Another standout figure during this time was Al Unser Jr., who won the Indy 500 twice, in '92 and '94. Unser's success at the Brickyard solidified his place as one of the sport's greats, and his battles with other top drivers of the era, such as Michael Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi, kept fans on the edge of their seats. In 2008, after years of division, the two major factions of IndyCar, CART and the IRL, finally came together to form a unified series under the name IndyCar Series. The unification of the sport marked the beginning of a new era, as the series aimed to restore its global appeal and attract top-tier drivers and teams from around the world. The post-unification era has been characterized by thrilling races, technological advancements, and the continued rise of superstar drivers. One of the most notable drivers in recent IndyCar history is Scott Dixon, who has dominated the series in the early 2000s and 2010s. Dixon, a native of New Zealand, has won multiple championships and consistently delivered impressive performances on the track, making him one of the most successful and respected drivers in the history of the series. In recent years, the sport has seen an influx of young talent, including drivers like Alexander Rossi, who won the Indianapolis 500 in 2016 in an unforgettable upset victory. Rossi's win in his rookie year was one of the most exciting moments in modern IndyCar history and helped to reinvigorate the series, drawing new fans and media attention. IndyCar racing is filled with incredible moments that have shaped the history of the sport. Some of the most notable moments include the Miracle at Indy in 1966. In one of the most dramatic finishes in the Indy 500 history, Graham Hill won the race after starting in the middle of the pack, proving that anything can happen at the Brickyard. The 1982 Indianapolis 500. Gordon Johncock won the race in a thrilling last-lap battle with Rick Mears, marking one of the closest finishes in the Indy 500 history. Danica Patrick's historic 2005 rookie season. Patrick became the first woman to lead the Indy 500 and finished in fourth place, cementing her place as a trailblazer for women in motorsport. As the engines roar and the cars race around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, fans are reminded of the rich history and the tradition that make IndyCar racing so special, an ever-evolving saga of speed, passion, and excellence. Thanks for watching. What topics in history have you wondered about? Comment below and let us know what videos you would like to see. And be sure to like and subscribe.